Claudia and welcome to this video tutorial. Today in the tutorial what I'm going to be showing you is how to animate some Photoshop files and potentially also Illustrator files in Adobe After Effects. So the benefits of being able to use Photoshop is that if you're familiar with Photoshop, you'll know that each of the images that you can put in there you can do in layers. So this means that if you've got any detailed graphics or anything, or you want to come up with some interesting titles without having to create them from scratch in After Effects, you can actually create them in Adobe Photoshop and drop them in and be able to animate them, and that'll also keep the files separate as well. So to start off, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you an example of the final result that we're going to have after I've animated in this particular Photoshop file. So as you can see, we've got a title here and it's for Vox Pops on GCTV, which is one of the segments that we do for our TV show at the school. And you can see that the microphone, the square that goes around the center of the microphone, and also the title Vox Pops are individually edited. So first off, I'm going to open up my PSD file, which is my Photoshop file that I've already got prepared. So you can see that's here, it's got the PSD on the end of it. And you can see here that I've got my graphics, everything that I need in here. But if I come over here, I can actually toggle them just to show you what layers I've got that I want to be able to edit. This is the squares that will go above and below the microphone, so it'll look as if it's actually sliding over the top of the microphone when it comes into the frame. And we've also got the microphone itself, and the cord is another separate layer, and so is the Vox Pops. So if I just get out of Photoshop here, I've already saved it as a file. You can see here just in the preview that this is my saved file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up from scratch an Adobe After Effects window, and once that's open you'll get a clear slate to be able to work on. So I'm going to close this first window just because I want to be able to open up my own files without having to worry about setting up any compositions. So I'm going to double click in here and I'm going to find whereabouts I actually put my PSD file. If I go down here I can see that that is my PSD file, and that's the one that I opened just earlier. So I'm going to open this one up, and so you actually get a window that pops up. So the import kind, sometimes you'll see that it is set to footage when you go into After Effects. So what you're going to do is you're going to go down and click on composition. And once you've chosen that one, you've got your layer options. So what you're going to do is make sure that you've got editable layer styles chosen instead of merged layer styles into footage, because this just means that each of the layers are going to stay individual to one another. Also choosing Live Photoshop 3D. So we're going to click on OK. And once you've done that, you'll be able to see that you've got the whole image as a composition, and that one doesn't have the individual layers, but you've also got a folder in here. So if you go down into the folder, you can see that every individual layer that I had in that Photoshop file is actually now in the After Effects file. So what we're going to do, we're going to pick up the folder instead of the composition, and we're going to drag it down to the new composition button just here. And so it'll come up with a new window for when you're creating a new composition. I'm going to go OK, and then it's going to give you all of your layers. So first off, what I'm going to do is I want to have a look at animating in the microphone by itself to start off with. So I'll get rid of any of the layers that I don't need for the moment just by using the eye toggle button on the side here. So I'll get rid of the back part of the square for the microphone. I'll need the cord there. That is the microphone, so I'll need that one. And just anything else for the time being. So I've got those two layers, so I know that number 4 is the microphone and number 5 is the cord. But if I'm going to be animating in those ones together, what I can do is I can grab these two layers, and if I go up to layer and go down to pre-compose, it's going to actually put those two layers together to make sure that you don't need to do them individually. You can put one animation over the whole thing and they're both going to move together. So instead of having it labelled pre-comp 1, I'm going to label it microphone, so I know what I'm actually working with. So once I go OK, you can see that it's taken the two layers and joined them together. So if I get rid of that, it gets rid of the whole thing, whereas if I turn it back on, you can see the whole of the microphone and the cord. So first off, I'm going to animate this one. If I go down into the settings, I can go into transform. What you can do is you can determine whereabouts in the shot you want the microphone to be at any given time through the different positions, anchor points, anything like that. You can change the size of it, whatever, but today we're simply going to be moving it into the frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it play for a little bit and just see at what point I want the microphone to be fully in the frame. So I think that's a good amount of time between here and there. So that's at about 25 frames. What I'll do now is I'm going to turn on the position for this one, and so that means that at this particular point the microphone will be exactly where it is seen to be. So when you turn on this stopwatch, it just means that you are able to animate a number of points rather than just having the one point. I'm going to bring this back to the beginning and I will change the position. So you've got side to side on the first option, and the other option to the right that you can see, the number that's not changing, the 540, that there is up and down. So if I were to change that, I could move it up and down, but I don't want to do that today. I just want to move it from side to side. So I'm going to manipulate this one here, and I'll pull it all the way back until you can't see the microphone in the shot. There we go. So what you'll see is that in this keyframe, on the left you've got the position for left and right. It is a different number for position to what it is at this particular keyframe when the microphone is fully in the shot. So at that one it's 960, so you can see that we've animated that one already. If we play it through, I'm just going to turn this one to third because sometimes it's easier to see animations when it's in third. So we can see that that one animates in straight away, and that's just going to replay a few times over. With that one, I want to make it a little bit quicker, so there's an easy solution to this one. What we can do is we can just move this keyframe closer in so that the time between the microphone being out of the shot and in the shot is a lot shorter. We've also got enough time to be able to animate the rest. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the squares that go over the top of and behind the microphone. Now, this one I've actually done in two different layers just to make it seem 3D, because you've got one layer that is behind the microphone and one layer that is in front. So if you were to actually pre-compose these, it would make it so that the layers were completely in front of the microphone, and I want to have one behind and one in front. So I'm not going to pre-compose these, but I'll pick the background and I'll pick the foreground layers, and I'm going to apply the same animations to each. So first off, what I'll do is I'll grab the layer that is in front of the microphone. And what you can see is we can go down into the transform options, and when I go into the microphone I can actually see the keyframes that I've already done. Now that you can see the keyframes of the microphone, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this bar a little bit further along so that I know whereabouts I want the image to end rather than where I want it to start. So rather than moving it along a few keyframes to where I want it to start, I'll have it where I want it to finish so that it's a lot easier for me to be able to animate the image and get it in the right position. For this position, I'll just click on position here so that's in the right spot. And what I can do is if I move it back to where I want it to start animating, I'm actually going to use both the X and Y values for this animation because I want it to come in diagonally over the top of the microphone. So when I have it coming off the mic, I'm going to do a few different keyframes with this just so that I know it'll be in the right position. So maybe about 4. 4 is a good number. You can see that this one's going to follow over the top of the microphone and go directly up this way rather than going out to the side or directly up. So this may require a few more keyframes just because you are doing the up and down and left and right options in the position. So you can see that this is the line to show where the animation is going. So that's following a fairly straight line in comparison to what the microphone is. So I'll come back a few more points and I will take this particular shape to where I need it to be. I'm just straightening up that line. You can see the line in the animation, it's moving just over on this side part here. So that looks fairly straight. So when I animate that one in, if I play it, it comes straight over the top of the microphone, nice and smooth like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to apply all of these effects to my other layer. So rather than doing it from scratch, I can select all of these. If you go Command C or Control C, depending on what computer you're working on. I'm working on a Mac at the moment, so it would be Command C. You can go and you can choose the background layer, which is this one here. I can see that. And come back to where the animation starts. So if I bring that just to there, come down into this layer, transform, I can actually choose the layer and go paste, and then that'll mean that they animate together. So that one comes down nice and smoothly. You can see that they all move in one motion. The next thing that I'm going to do in this tutorial is I'm going to choose the text that animates with it, and I'm going to animate that one in the same way as these ones animate in, because I want it to be able to follow along with the name GCTV on this particular tag. So I'll quickly do that. Once again, I'll find the layer that it's on, and that's it there. Come down into transform and paste that one in. So now if I just toggle these ones so that I can see the text, you can still see that the animation is working just inside of all of these layers. So the final thing that I want to be able to do is animate the main title, which is just here, Vox Pops on GCTV. I'm going to open up just one of these so that I can see where the keyframes were for the dark blue, light blue and white text, because they have all been animated together. And I'll just move this along so that I know where I want the word Vox Pops to be in the final shot. So what I can do is go down into transform like I have been doing with the other layers, and I will just click on position with that one. And I just want it to drop straight from the top of the screen. So I'll bring this back, and I'm going to change where it starts off in the shot. There we go. So that's all of our animation done. If we want to watch through it, we can see that that all goes through fairly quickly. So that animates in nicely. Another tip for if you ever want to make anything quite smooth in the way that it animates into a shot, if you go into these keyframes, there is an option for keyframe assistant. And generally you can choose Easy Ease. It's a good way to make sure that any of the animations that you do are not too sharp. I'm going to go Easy Ease, and you can see that it changes the keyframes with that one. And so that is all of our animations done for this particular tutorial. So what I'm going to do, just to add a few more features, you can see that all of my animation is done, but in the background I don't really have anything there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a layer. You can do this in After Effects itself. You don't need to have it done beforehand in Photoshop. And I just want a solid layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a colour that's existent in the picture that I've chosen. You can choose any colour you like, and I'm going to double click in here, and this is a good way of being able to choose your colour palette. So because I've chosen that blue, you can see that there are other shades of this particular type of blue that I can use. So I'm going to go for a darker colour and just go OK with that one. And once I go OK, you'll see that we've got the solids that have appeared up here, and the solid has also appeared in my actual composition. So if I move that to the back, it gives me a bit of a background to use, so that it contrasts a little bit better against its background rather than having it completely on a black background. So I'll move it back to the beginning, and I'm going to go to full, just so that I can see what it looks like. Now that I'm happy with that, I know that that's the animation that I want. I can just render it out.